Welcome to paradise, or to hell for most of you. You're here because you think you're tough enough for the SAS.
SAS selection is legendary for its toughness. Jungle survival is an essential part of the process. We're in 30,000 square miles of jungle in Sarawak, the Malaysian part of Borneo. Former members of the SAS are recreating SAS selection. Up to now, we have 8 volunteers still standing. For some, however, the last couple of days have been an absolute nightmare, totally torturous. In fact, the dropout rate has been so high that Eddie and the rest of the DS staff have yet to make a single dismissal. Previously, the volunteers went through the ordeal known as interrogation.
Get on your feet now! Hey, what do you think this is, right?
The 11 who started the exercise were already sleep-deprived and physically exhausted.
What about you, Shed?
Overnight, they were subjected to 8 hours of white noise, stress positions and tough questioning.
Put on your head. Right.
3 of the volunteers didn't survive. Ian Burns found it psychologically very tough.
Look at me! Right, have you got a clue what's going on here?
He's not really recovered.
The interrogation process, I think, was a bit more personal to myself because my granddad fought out in this area and was taken prisoner in the area and died in a POW camp out here.
He's decided to quit. Mentally, it's tough, but so far most of the volunteers have fallen out due to the extreme physical demands. Robert Treadwell injured his back during the last exercise. He'd slipped a disc. There are 3 women remaining, but the youngest, Iona Robertson, was dropped on her head.
I've been really thinking about sort of jacking it in, really, because, I don't know, I just had enough, really.
Day 10, and there are still 6 days to go in the claustrophobic and stifling Borneo rainforest. For those that are left, the pressure doesn't let up. The volunteers never know what former SAS Staff Sergeant Eddie Stone has in store for them.
Dismissals. Iona Robertson, take a pace forward. Happy birthday. 2 boiled eggs. You ready, lads? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Iona. Happy birthday to you. Right, you fell back in.
Iona is 22.
Okay, bike patrols, lead off.
The monsoon is making its presence felt. Even a birthday isn't enough to lift the low spirits of the 6 remaining volunteers. The next 48 hours will bring in critical new aspects of SAS training, designed to stretch them to their mental limits.
Okay, listen in. You just get me that box for me, just get the mines in. We're going into mines next. Never pick up anything in the jungle. Clear? Okay, booby traps. Booby traps are dangerous. Booby traps come in a whole variety of different shapes and forms. For example, they can be normal mines. The Claymore mine, although designed to be triggered from a hand device, can be rigged as a booby trap and set off by any form of pull, pressure, or whatever type of trigger you put on it. Grenades. You pull the pin on a grenade, it goes off. All you've got to do is apply a piece of string to that, and you've got a booby trap. If you're on the receiving end, start thinking like the guy that put these down. Now, if you think that there is possibly booby traps in the path that you are walking along, observe all the time. I'm talking about something wrong with nature. Leaves turned over that look fresh. This is a man-made booby trap. This will kill you. You fall in that, you could trip over on your knees and your thighs, big gashes, and these like razors. Put on them, you'll be infected. And that's what the enemy wants. They don't want you dead, they want you injured. It takes 10 people to maneuver an injured person away from this environment. Okay, what we're going to do now, I'm going to walk you through, one at a time, a booby trap lane.
The course Barry has set up is riddled with tripwires, hidden pressure plates and man traps. The volunteers must spot them and avoid setting them off.
Okay, here's our first booby trap. I've got 2 pieces of plate with a piece of paper between them. The straight edges face each other, the paper goes between them, covered up with leaves, and then when they push down on their pressure, that goes on there and forces a contact, and therefore the bomb goes boom.
Mozzie repellent.
Yeah, it's there for a purpose. It's brightly coloured, you can see what it is. It's alien to the track. And the idea of having it there is to take their attention away from the real booby trap, which is just 2 meters ahead. This line here is our tripwire. You just walk into it and you think it was a piece of cobweb or something, walk straight through it and off it would go.
And what joyous delight have you set up with this?
On this one, what I've got is an arrow coming out, and the idea is just to maim the person, and it's set, it's quite accurate actually, it's set at about hip height, so it will actually stab them in the side of the hip. Yeah. The tip is poisoned, so yeah, actually walking through it, and simple and very effective. Well, what I've done, I've put a dummy wire here with some vine around it. Now that's easy spotted, okay, and if they don't see that, you know, deserve to get killed. Lower down, I've got a wire attached to the pin on the grenade. Okay.
Now, I presume no one should touch an ammo box.
Yeah, it's like everything else, you know, a foreign object in the middle of the jungle or middle of your track. You don't want to touch it, and maybe because it's, you know, underneath will be a grenade or some kind of explosive device. It can also be just a diversionary tactic, so if you actually walk now around the side of this, okay, very gently, you'll feel the ground under your foot. Okay.
Hey! To tackle the booby trap lane, you need to feel your way with the aid of a twig. Professional rugby player Susie Appleby is asked to go first.
If you see a booby trap or you encounter a booby trap, you can move under it or around it, no more than about 1 meter away from the track. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Right. Have you got your stick?
I have, sir.
Good. Okay, away you go. Slowly take your time. If I say freeze, I want you to freeze immediately. If you see a booby trap, you can move under it or around it.
It's the unexpected. I don't get scared very easily, so hopefully I'm not worried about being scared or creepy crawlies or anything like that. It's just the unexpected.
Paranoid? I mean, because I'd be totally freaked out by that.
That was the most exciting thing we've done.
Really?
Yeah, that was quite enjoyable. Testing before you put your foot down and just being really aware of everything around you. Having said that, I'm looking for them, you know.
Yeah.
If you walk into somewhere and you're not expecting it, I can't imagine how you're going to probably could just step straight on them.
On the track.
all the volunteers are wearing heart monitors to measure their stress levels.
Jill and Iona are the last 2 through. So far, Barry says the standard has been impeccably high.
Stop. Well done.
You've looked at the girl's heart rate. What does that tell us about them? You two.
Well, in Iona's case, it perhaps shows what you expect. There's sort of peaks. She's ticking along at about 70, 75, which isn't her resting heart rate, but, you know, a hot place like this and standing up, that's fair enough. And then it zooms up 100, 110, and I think you felt, you knew when it was high, didn't you, Iona?
Definitely very anxious if we saw a tripwire or something like that, and also when I went to the front of the group because we swapped over, I was definitely sort of trying to be a bit more alert. And
yeah. But in Jill's case, she sort of was at the sort of 70, 75 and seemed to sort of stay at it. You
Stone cold killer, Jill.
In reality, adrenaline does switch on your senses. I mean, it's not just that it makes your heart rate beat faster and it takes blood away from your gut and gives it to your muscles and things, so you get this sort of knot in the stomach. But it actually improves your eyesight, improves your reaction times. Oh yeah. And special forces, for example, in sniping, will actually take a beta blocker drug to control it, so they don't have any tremor at all.
Now they must prepare for tomorrow's overnight exercise. They will be tested on all the skills they've learnt so far. It's their first proper mission, to gather intelligence on a known enemy camp. This is called a close target recce. It's one of the core roles of the SAS, and the patrols will need to build a model.
Things that the model must have. It has to have a scale. Okay, in this case, it's 500 metres or 1,000 metres. And it must have some form of identifying features, both man-made or natural. In this case, the blue ribbons, the pieces of string, and the little signs.
It's one of the things that the SAS do extremely well, and is, for the large part, their bread and butter work, intelligence gathering, and that means going in close, not necessarily in a jungle environment, but in any kind of environment. I mean, we do it in towns, we do it in sort of in the countryside in the UK, or wherever they operate around the world. There's a drop-off place, usually close to the target. You actually make your way to the target. You have a plan of exactly what you can do on target. You have protection. Somebody's obviously covering your backside. You do your CTR. You come out and you withdraw to the pickup point.
Before that, another night at base camp. In Iona Robertson's patrol, spirits are briefly raised for the celebration of her birthday.
oh, thank you. One again. I think it's going to be the strangest birthday ever.
It's a lovely little scene, isn't it? Oh no, we're on hard tack tomorrow. We've got to sit out and freeze our nuts off in the middle of the jungle. If we had any nuts, that would be part bad.
In the other patrol, it's a very different atmosphere. Tim Phillips has decided to eat his supper alone. Generally, Tim has coped well with the intense physical pressures of the last 10 days. He's also done well with the mental demands of selection. As a management consultant, he's used to the cut and thrust of city life.
Once we've identified the opportunities, is to do some business case development.
The directing staff believe he's going all out to win, but Tim has a different view.
Strange all day today, and I think the staff are trying to, play us off against one another to see who's, really got the desire to kind of win this, and trying to turn it into much more of a competition than perhaps we would want it, because I think we just all want to just hang in there and get through to the end. So I'm keen to kind of keep it the way it is, and we're not played off too much one against another.
But it's not just Tim who is feeling down. As the night draws on, others are in a reflective mood.
I'm very, very bored with this place and very pissed off. And I'm really, the worst thing I'm being pissed off about is being treated like shit all the time. I'm not used to it, and I don't really want to do another week. Hopefully, this is an awful thing to say, but hopefully I've done bad enough that I might get kicked off tomorrow. That's what I'm hoping, because I won't give up.
I know that you have to be mentally and physically extraordinarily tough. You know, you have to keep going and going and going, and take all the flack that you're going to get from, you know, the sergeants or the, you know, whoever's out there, really.
Basically, I've just been wishing for the last 2 days that someone would just bin me, basically. I just want to go, really.
Yeah, I managed to sneak in a little picture of my girlfriend here, which I, you know, say goodnight to and speak to every night. Pretty sad, I know, but hey.
Motivation, I'm fine. I'm not one to get down. It has to take a lot to get me down normally. But it's really a tribute to our species, really, that the three of us are here.
Hi, yeah, just a little message to Casey. Yeah, I mean, I knew I was going to miss you, but believe me, I didn't realise I was going to miss you this much. I'm missing you so much. It's so nice because I just think of you know, all the good things, and it makes me feel really nice and really warm inside. Brings a little smile to my face. It makes me feel special. I just can't wait to hold you again. That'll just be brilliant. So yeah, take care of yourself, and I love you lots. Bye.
For the first time in days, a sunny morning in the Borneo rainforest. But that's about to change for the worse. Eddie Stone has another challenge. It's not enough that our volunteers have tabbed untold miles in searing heat. Not enough they've displayed the basic fundamental rules of soldiering. All they have to do to really impress the DS is to carry a 45-pound Bergen across this river. River crossing is a vital skill in jungle warfare, but it has to be done tactically. Soldiers are extremely exposed when crossing water. The former SAS directing staff show the volunteers how it's done. River crossing also has other dangers. The river Battling Eye is high from the previous day's rainfall, and the current is strong. The SAS use the buoyancy of their Bergens to float across the river, but they must keep their rifles poised to defend themselves at all times. This is a time when they are highly vulnerable to attack. Teamwork is essential for the quickest and safest possible crossing.
Generally, tactically, you would actually recce the place you're going to go across, choose a good place to get across safely, get everybody to waterproof all their kit.
Ian Parsons, Jill Watson and Susie Appleby go first. They must all cover their tracks.
Put the Bergens together, get on top of the Bergens with your weapons so you can actually sort of push the Bergen flotation aid across together with your weapons in one hand so you can actually fire if you have to.
It is also essential they keep their weapons dry. Eddie and the DS are scrutinising their every move.
It's a dangerous thing to do. In fact, a lot of people have actually drowned in the SES crossing rivers, especially when the river's in flood. The main danger is of actually doing it when the enemy sees you doing it. The reason for getting people across together is to have some firepower.
At the far side, one patrol member should climb the bank to maintain a proper lookout, but Ian Parsons forgets, leaving the others vulnerable. Now the second patrol undertake the river crossing. They make a better, swifter start and head upstream to counter the current. Mike, apart from the obvious threat of drowning, what have our volunteers got to fear from that river?
Well, there is animal life in there, both bigger and smaller. The bigger is snakes. There's some water snakes around, although most of them aren't venomous. Cobras do take to swimming at times, and we've seen them in the river here. And then at the microscopic level, you've got disease, and there's some pretty exotic diseases around. There's these sort of bugs that can get the gut, potentially. If you drink any of the water, you can get amoebic dysentery.
What about the old classic Viles disease? Is that going to be in here?
Yeah, there's rats around, and so Viles disease is potentially in the river as well.
Tim Phillips makes a good job of climbing the bank and covering his patrol. They leave without a trace.
We sort of walked up a bit and knowing the current would push us down, but we wasn't too bad. Yeah, I think we did really well. We could have polished up a bit. Well, it's only practice, and at each end we could have been a bit slicker.
That's the frustrating thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the first time we've done it, so you know, we learn. Yeah, no, I think in general we did pretty well.
The only thing that would freak me out is just this complete attention to detail all the time. The most, you know, the minutiae, as it were.
It's quite the thing that I found quite nice is we talked about it so many times, and like for the last week, it's been, you know, you've been stood there doing nothing, and suddenly you're paddling. What is the last thing that someone does after a river crossing? And finally, we actually managed to put it all, like all the theory, sort of into practice, which was quite nice.
The benefits of army discipline are starting to pay off, but Eddie knows that generally the morale of the volunteers is still low.
I think the rain over the last couple of days has depressed them a bit. There's a bit more tactical knowledge to learn, which I think they're struggling with. Walking up and down hills is only a small part of the job. The main part of the job has actually been operationally effective when you're doing something.
All members of the SAS have to be able to withstand psychological pressure. During selection, they're constantly criticised and challenged, even if they're doing well.
I've never seen such a disorganised bunch of people in my life. You think you can get into the regiment? You've got to be kidding. Yeah? And you ever think of washing your bergens, washing the kit in your bergens or anything? Too much trouble for you, no doubt. Right, Appleby. Up, give us this briefing. Stand over there. Tell us what you're going to do.
Susie Appleby has been made patrol commander for tonight's close target recce. It's her job to brief Eddie on a plan for the mission.
Stuff. We had two options and we discussed it yesterday.
I don't want to hear the options, I just want to know what you're going to do.
Okay. We're going to take a route up the north side of the river.
You got any points on route that you can give me, you know?
You're starting at our present location.
Yeah.
And we're going to take a bearing of 0 degrees for 300 metres north, continuing up to the top of the spur. At that stage, staff, we're going to see what we can see.
Good reference at the top of the spur.
Sorry, staff?
Good reference at the top of the spur.
You not got it?
Yes, Dad.
Well, why didn't you do it then?
Don't know, Staff.
You don't know?
No.
Because you're incompetent, is that it?
No, Staff.
Well, why didn't you do it then?
Grid reference at the top of the spur. 291 325. So then we will be north of the target.
Right, all right, forget all that, because it's abs. That's what it is. I mean, you can't tell people to go somewhere without giving them grid references where they're going to go to, right?
Yes, Staff.
That's abs anyway, what you are saying. Right, sit back down. Who planned the way you're going to do the CTR?
Well, myself and Watson and Phillips, Staff.
Right. What are you looking at? You off. Don't you give me dirty looks, you understand?
Yes, Staff.
Or you'll be straight out of here. Your plan is absolute You've got a CTR lecture you were given. You haven't planned a route of any sort. You've looked at bearings on the map without even getting there. You don't know what the ground looks like.
Yes, sir. What keeps me going when things get tough is the knowledge that I will achieve at the end of it, and that it will end eventually. Nothing can go on forever. So eventually it will end and I will survive it. I know that I'll always survive it.
Eddie's anger is justified. This is exactly the sort of thing the SAS are trained for, operating behind enemy lines, gathering information. Detailed planning for every stage is essential. The next 24 hours are going to test many of the skills they've learnt on this course based on SAS selection. It will also test their concentration and patience.
Everyone understands the mission. We are tactical from the moment we leave this camp. When you halt, down on one knee. Hand signals for communication, no talking. It's your military skills that you'll be assessed on in this phase, not your physical fitness.
The volunteers' mission is to confirm the location of an enemy army base. They must approach unseen and overnight make a full reconnaissance. Two of the former SAS directing staff are going to assess their performance. In every conflict the SAS have been involved in, they've carried out this type of mission. In the Gulf War, they did close target recce's on Iraqi bases and main supply routes. During the conflict in Malaysia, the SAS frequently made trips over to the Indonesian part of Borneo to observe troop build-ups and assess the potential for attack.
It's a close target recce. That means you've got to get in close. The reason for doing that is to gather the best information about the target that you can possibly get. Generally, we would go in and use infrared photography and sometimes put bugging devices in so we could listen remotely to the target area. So everything I've learned so far is bringing them into this one factor, close target recce. That is the basic element of the SAS.
Humidity is 98% and it started to rain again. The volunteers have spent 2 hours battling through the jungle towards the enemy camp. The directing staff have told them that they are now behind enemy lines, so it is essential they move quietly.
Spotted the target. What we think might be the target's a building down there by the river. What we think now is place the patrol now. While myself and Phillips go and scout down there and see and try and confirm that it is the target.
The patrol set up an emergency rendezvous position and hide their Bergens. In the event of an enemy attack, this is where they will withdraw to. The mission has only just begun, but already the volunteers are tired. Chatty Jill Watson is unusually quiet. Sam Pantling remains alert, but Ian Parsons is suffering.
I've just come about 500 metres up the hill, through loads of big fern. It's been quite hard work. In the rain, everything's soaking, feet are pretty sore, blisters. I've taken the inners out of my boots because my feet have swollen so much. Yeah, it's not very pleasant, pretty miserable actually, and we're just keeping guard all round the fence, ORD. Determination, I think. Yeah, it has been hard. Anybody to do it would be tough, I think, you know, however fit they are. Yeah, but just focused, I think. But I think there's a lot more to come.
The patrols are applying what they've learnt so far about jungle navigation and survival. But military intelligence gathering is new to our civilian volunteers.
Observations. That's the primary you can do in the regiment. Sit on the asses and watch. There's nothing glamorous about the work that we do. A position like that, you could maintain that for 10 days. There have been OPs held in our technicians for 13 days at a time. If you can't get it together on day one, you're going to become liability by day 5. Right, 2 minutes from the move out.
10 soldiers from the Malaysian army are playing the enemy for this exercise. The DS have briefed them on what to do. To successfully complete the close target recce, the volunteers have to report back in detail on all the movements and the activities at the enemy camp.
OK, it's late in the afternoon now. It's fairly safe to assume our volunteers have been here for a couple of hours. They've got a long night ahead of them. They can probably see the Malaysian Army complex. They can also probably see us. Now, what they're going to have to do all night is hard routine, keeping watch, seeing if there's any movements around here and recording them. It remains to see whether they can be as vigilant as the night wears on.
No women are allowed on real SAS selection, but on this course they're doing remarkably well. Is it important being a woman here and succeeding?
No, not to me. Just being here and succeeding is the main thing.
Good.
The fact that there's 3 of us that are doing all right is really good. Because obviously there were 6 to start, there's 3 of us now, so that's not a bad proportion really when 2/3 of the whole lot have gone.
And how important is it for you now to get through to win or get through to the final 4?
I'd like to get through to the last 4 now that I've got this far. It's become more of a goal for me. When I turned up, I just thought, well, I'll just see what happens, really. But now that you come this far...
In order to watch over the camp, the volunteers must spend the night on the jungle floor, and that is not without its dangers.
What physical dangers can they face tonight?
Well, they're going to have a pretty uncomfortable night. It's not much fun on the ground. There are lots of things on the ground, and they're going to play on their mind. So the insects here are, well, some of them are the size of buses and they bite. So there's giant centipedes, there's big ants, the snakes come out at night, which is worrying, and then many of the insects can also carry disease. The daytime mosquitoes carry dengue fever, which can make you pretty ill. The nighttime mosquitoes perversely carry malaria, which can be very, very serious. Even Japanese encephalitis, which is a brain swelling disease that's fatal. There's a lot of things there, but yes, it's not that likely.
At the emergency RV, the volunteers are making final preparations. Soon they will move to their observation positions close to the enemy camp. Susie has split the patrol in half. Her plan is to have 2 different viewpoints from which they can carry out the close target recce. This is their last chance to eat. They're so close to the enemy they cannot light stoves and have to eat cold rations. Already soaked through, the temperature is now dropping.
OK, it's now dusk. Our volunteers have been out in the bush for about 4 hours now. Unexpectedly, or expectedly, what with it being a rainforest and all, there's a storm coming, and this is just the start of it. I imagine it will get a lot worse through the night, which means it will be a lot harder for our volunteers to A, rest, and B, retain any information whatsoever.
It's 10 o'clock. Working in their 2 groups, the volunteers take it in turns to keep watch over the enemy camp. In the Falklands War, the SAS spent up to a month on reconnaissance, assessing enemy numbers, weapons and movements. They remain completely hidden during daylight and only moved at night.
You need to know exactly what the target layout is like, how many people are in there, what defences they have, and be able to find the best way to assault that.
On our right-hand side, there is 6 medium to brightish lights. Look, there is 2 spotlights on top of the tower, which could be a gun tower or something. Okay, the spotlights have just got brighter, being directed around the area to keep an eye out for intruders.
The Malaysian army, playing the enemy for us, do a spotlight search every hour and are regularly patrolling the camp. They don't know where the volunteers are, and they start out keeping a good watch. But very quickly, as instructed, they relax their vigilance.
Saya makan habis saya punya. Kamu ambil semua ini.
Kamu bikin di sini keluar. Kamu tidak tahu apa yang terjadi di luar sana. Keluar cepat kamu. Keluar kamu cepat.
Kamu pergilah.
0:05 hours. We heard noises as if some orders were being shouted. The spotlight came on and did its looping.
It's after midnight. The patrol have been sitting in the cold and wet, observing the camp for over 6 hours, and management consultant Tim Phillips is suffering.
I know there's things that I'm not particularly good at, such as when I have lack of sleep and stuff, I'm not particularly brilliant. But I mean, most of this is a mental thing anyway. We know we're going to be pushed to our limits, and we know that just having the right attitude is the thing that's going to keep you going when you really need it. I expect I'm really going to start thinking, why on earth did I volunteer for this? And also, when on earth is it going to end?
Jill and Sam cuddle up to maintain body warmth. Jill's thinking about home.
My daughter thinks it's wicked, that's a quote, that I'm coming on this, because it'll be on telly next year and all her schoolmates will think I'm a star. And they already think I'm a star because I won school sports day mother's sprint. Anyway.
Mike, it's about 3 in the morning now. Even though it's an exercise, our volunteers must be getting exhausted. How do they keep the concentration?
Well, they're heading towards the real low point when the body is trying desperately to make them lie down and go to sleep, which is perhaps at 4 or 5 o'clock. Body temperature's right down. And they're going to be finding it hard. They're probably going to be getting sort of intermittent nods and potentially missing things. It's been shown that certainly in the age when there weren't computers to read radar, some military research showed that the guys that were watching the screens trying to look for incoming missiles, they were missing lots and lots of them.
Can they do anything about it?
But if they can get back from their observation point and just bed down for a short time, get to sleep for up to 30 or 40 minutes, then that will restore their vigilance. If they sleep for longer, then they tend to go into a deeper sort of sleep, and that actually can make them feel more drowsy still if they get woken from it.
"16 hours since the start of the exercise. Patrol leader Susie Appleby is struggling.
Absolutely freezing. I can't believe someone decided not to stay.
Okay, it's about 4 in the morning now. Now, even though the Malaysian army are totally in on this exercise, they've yet to spot or even find a trace of where our volunteers are. Whether that's the case in a couple of hours when the light goes up and they probably extend their search remains to be seen. First light, the volunteers observe renewed movement in the enemy camp. The volunteers start to pull out. The enemy are now extending their patrols into the jungle. It is a critical time. The success of the mission rests on them not being seen. "20 hours after the start of the close target recce, the patrol staggers into base camp.
I suggest that you get your boots off, dry your feet, talc them and put your sand shoes on. 5 minutes over the schoolhouse.
Keeping dry in the humidity of the jungle is a real challenge. The volunteers are soaked through. If the skin remains wet for too long, it breaks up, fungal infections set in and the skin starts to rot. Trench foot is one of a soldier's worst enemies, and Tim isn't expecting a pretty sight.
It's a bit sore here, I've got fungus at the back here. Don't you see it? It's all rubber all there.
That's awful.
Well, we've seen a few cases this week of feet in a very, very bad condition, but Tim's look awful.
Yeah, they're really beginning to get very bad indeed now. I mean, the conditions have got everything working against him. The heat makes your feet swell up, the water makes your feet soggy, the boots start rubbing because they get tight. And then once they get abraded, ingo infection, fungi, bacteria, the whole works. And, you know, he looks as though he's had a sort of sander taken to him.
I mean, he's got those red dots all over his soles as well. What are they? Is that just an infection? Is that spread in there?
It's difficult. I thought at first it might be heat rash, then we thought maybe it was fungal. Now I think it is just abraded, and I'm sure it's very, very sore.
And if Tim's problems continue, we've only got about 5 days left, including today. Can you stay the course?
Tim can barely walk today, and they could be just as bad tomorrow. They may take him out.
It is little surprise that Ian Parsons and Tim Phillips are the last of the schoolhouse. The volunteers now have to brief Eddie on last night's activities. They are all suffering from sleep deprivation.
Iona, can you translate your stuff to Sue, please? I mean, to Commander Appleby.
Never call me Sue. I'll smash your face in as well. No patience left whatsoever.
Susie delegates the tasks of model building and map drawing.
The guys now, what they're doing, they're trying to construct a model of what they've actually seen.
Is that what it was?
So we think there's a kind of bunker, sentry point, something up here.
The reason for a close target recce is to establish that the mission that you're about to do is actually viable. First of all, that the enemy isn't too big, that you're able to take them on if you have to. You can, if you can't, then you can assess how strong the enemy is, basically the activity, what's the enemy's strength, what are they doing, what weapons they've got. If they've got rocket launchers there, have they got gun towers, you know, what sort of ground are they commanding? Because you might not be the one going to do the actual attack. And if your CTR report is false, and you say the enemy only numbered 10, when there's actually 50 there, I mean, you've got your own people going into a much stronger force.
Having been criticised for their initial planning of the CTR, the patrol is determined to deliver their report in a correct military fashion. It starts with an essential SAS operating procedure.
If we come under attack, Pantling, I want you to personally destroy the plan here.
Yes.
Our mission is to obtain as much intelligence as possible about the target and the surrounding area without compromising ourselves.
We left our present location at 14:50 hours. We proceeded for 400 metres in a northerly direction on the path of the north side of the river.
In front of the footpath we have a tower. On this tower there is 2 lights.
It soon became evident that the watchtower was operating a searchlight on a regular basis throughout the night.
At 06:45 AM, a probe drill around the perimeter consisting of 8 men in melee combats with weapons compromised ROP-1.
Patrol 2 and Patrol 1 withdrew to the Bergen cache, which was our ERV on our Bergens, and we withdrew by the same route that we had entered. Are there any questions?
No questions. Okay, just grab a seat. The model has been well prepared. Your CTR report, and you've done it reasonably well. And in general, that was quite a good effort from us all. Okay. Well done.
The patrols are given time to reorganise after the successful completion of the CTR. The volunteers have now been on selection in the Borneo jungle for 12 days. They've had no sleep for over 36 hours.
Right, day to day, last night was absolutely horrendous. I've been so cold and wet in my life. And, you know, I spent yesterday thinking I was going to pack it in and people persuaded me not to. And last night I just thought, now, what are you doing?
Just lying there in the jungle, the mighty jungle, but no one slept tonight.
Everyone was a bit said they'd prefer the interrogation than what we did last night.
2 of the volunteers have hit rock bottom.
I think this is my last day. I've enjoyed it ever so much, but I think I'm bailing out. You could say I'm quitting, but I am. But 2 ways of looking at it. It is so tough mentally when you're A, your feet are gone, and B, you're soaking wet, freezing cold, and awake every 3 hours, stagging, watching out for what's going on.
I think, to be honest, I'm going to go tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I've packed all my rucksack well and things like that, so just in case I stay. So, I've been talking to Ian about it, and he feels the same, basically. But poor Ian, his feet are absolutely terrible. You know, have you seen the things? They look like bloody, he's got elephantitis or something.
I'm going to say something now that I really, really hope that I'm wrong. But I'm just going to say it anyway, that I feel that possibly Aona's, or however you pronounce her name, seems to be sort of trying to persuade Ian to leave. And I really, really hope this isn't the case. And I hope that I've got this wrong. So, Iona, if you're watching this and it's not the case, I'm so, so sorry for thinking it. But at the same time, I can't help how I feel. So this is Sam Pantling saying goodnight and farewell till tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. And each other.
A good night's sleep is what the volunteers needed, and amazingly, the next morning there was a complete change of mood. Today's planned exercise is to abseil down a 100-foot waterfall. It makes a welcome contrast to the intense soldiering of the past few days. It's a big morale boost. Iona and Ian have changed their minds and are going to stay. Barry, how often does the SAS abseil?
They abseil an awful lot, especially anti-terrorist teams, so there's always something that they're actually doing. Just about anything that the SAS do, they abseil from helicopters, etc. They would abseil to get into the jungle.
But is it the case where you do it once, it's like riding a bike?
Yeah, once you've learned to do the basics and you've got confidence, it's just going that first little bit where you lean back and you get yourself steady. Once you've got that, if you bend your knees too much, you cave in and you tighten up. You've really got to loosen out and just come down. Once you've done it, you realise that it's not dangerous, and in an environment like this, it's fantastic. Coming down a waterfall, it's brilliant.
3 of the 6 volunteers are experienced climbers. Iona is less so.
Well, keep your right hand all times on that rope.
If any of the volunteers refuse to abseil down the waterfall, they will be dismissed. The rocks are very slippery, but everyone completes the exercise. How's that?
Fine. Good.
Fine?
No, good fun.
I don't get more than a fine?
Yeah, it's just a waterfall.
Okay. Different species.
No, it's all right. It's good fun, but...
Have you done anything like that before? No, you see...
Quite a lot of mountaineering.
Oh yeah, girl. It gets wet too. I imagine that's slightly more your speed, isn't it?
Yeah, that was wicked. That was really exhilarating. You know that, what's that aftershave, that cool, you know the cool feeling when there's it's on the waterfall, it's wicked. That is excellent, really buzzing.
Next time on SAS Jungle, are you tough enough?
We're ambushing a boat which has got vital documents in.
Ceasefire! Move down, move down.
Man down, man down.
Get the medikit.
Personal to myself, because my granddad fought out in this area and was taken prisoner in the area and died in a POW camp out here.
It's decided to quit. Mentally, it's tough, but so far most of the volunteers have fallen out due to the extreme physical demands. Robert Treadwell injured his back during the last exercise. He'd slipped a disc. There are 3 women remaining, but the youngest, Iona Robertson, was dropped on her head.
I've been really thinking about sort of jacking it in really because I don't know, I just had enough really.
Day 10, and there are still 6 days to go in the claustrophobic and stifling Borneo rainforest. For those that are left, the pressure doesn't let up. The volunteers never know what former SAS Staff Sergeant Eddie Stone has in store for them.
Dismissals. Iona Robertson, take a pace forward. Happy birthday. 2 boiled eggs. Welcome to paradise, or to hell for most of you. You're here because you think you're tough enough for the SAS.
SAS Selection is legendary for its toughness. Jungle survival is an essential part of the process. We're in 30,000 square miles of jungle in Sarawak, the Malaysian part of Borneo. Former members of the SAS are recreating SAS Selection. Up to now we have 8 volunteers still standing. For some, however, the last couple of days have been an absolute nightmare, totally torturous. In fact, the dropout rate has been so high that Eddie and the rest of the DS staff have yet to make a single dismissal. Previously, the volunteers went through the ordeal known as interrogation.
Get on your feet now! Hey, what do you think this is, right?
The 11 who started the exercise were already sleep-deprived and physically exhausted.
What about you, Shed?
Overnight, they were subjected to 8 hours of white noise, stress positions and tough questioning.
Put on your head. Right.
3 of the volunteers didn't survive. Ian Burns found it psychologically very tough.
Look at me! Right, have you got a clue what's going on here?
He's not really recovered.
The interrogation process, I think, was a bit more.
We ready, lads? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Iona. Happy birthday to you. Right, get fell back in.
Iona is 22.
OK, by patrols, lead off.
The monsoon is making its presence felt. Even a birthday isn't enough to lift the low spirits of the 6 remaining volunteers. The next 48 hours will bring in critical new aspects of SAS training, designed to stretch them to their mental limits.
Okay, listen in. You just get me that box and me, just get the mines in. We're going into mines next. Never pick up anything in the jungle. Clear? Okay, booby traps. Booby traps are dangerous. Booby traps come in a whole variety of different shapes and forms. For example, they can be normal mines. The Claymore mine, although designed to be triggered from a hand device, can be rigged as a booby trap and set off by any form of pull, pressure, or whatever type of trigger you put on it. Grenades. You pull the pin on a grenade, it goes off. All you've got to do is apply a piece of string to that and you've got a booby trap. If you're on the receiving end, start thinking like the guy that put these down. Now, if you think that there is possibly booby traps in the path that you are walking along, observe all the time. I'm talking about something wrong with nature. Leaves turned over that look fresh. This is a man-made booby trap. This will kill you. You fall in that, you could trip over on your knees and your thighs, big gashes, and these like razors. Put on them, you'd be infected. And that's what the enemy wants. They don't want you dead, they want you injured. It takes 10 people to maneuver an injured person away from this environment. Okay, what we're going to do now, I'm going to walk you through, one at a time, a booby trap lane.
The course Barry has set up is riddled with tripwires, hidden pressure plates and man traps. The volunteers must spot them and avoid setting them off.
Okay, here's our first booby trap. I've got 2 pieces of plate with a piece of paper between them. The straight edges face each other, the paper goes between them, covered up with leaves, and then when they push down on their pressure, that goes on there and forces a contact, and therefore the bomb goes boom.
Mozzie repellent.
Yeah, it's there for a purpose. It's brightly coloured, you can see what it is. It's alien to the track. And the idea of having it there is to take their attention away from the real booby trap, which is just 2 metres ahead. This line here is our tripwire. Just walk into it and you think it was a piece of cobweb or something, walk straight through it and off it would go.
And what joyous delight have you set up with this?
On this one, what I've got is an arrow coming out, and the idea is just to maim the person, and it's set, it's quite accurate actually, it's set at about hip height, so it will actually stab them in the side of the hip. Yeah. Well, the tip is poisoned, so yeah, actually walking through it, and simple and very effective. Well, what I've done, I've put a dummy wire here with some vine around it. Now that's easy spotted, okay, and if they don't see that, you know, deserve to get killed. Lower down, I've got a wire attached to the pin on the grenade.
Okay. Now, I presume no one should touch an ammo box.
Yeah, it's like everything else, you know, a foreign object in the middle of the jungle or middle of your track. You don't want to touch it, and maybe because it's, you know, underneath will be a grenade or some kind of explosive device. It can also be just a diversionary tactic, so if you actually walk now around the side of this, okay, very gently, you'll feel the ground under your foot, okay?
Hey! To tackle the booby trap lane, you need to feel your way with the aid of a twig.